Hello, my crafty friends. Today I am sharing a cute mini slimline card that is also a pop-up. I started my card with a piece of cardstock that was 7 by 6 inches, and I scored it down the center at 3.5. So that gives me my mini slimline card sized 3.5 by 6 inches folded, and it fits in a number 8 envelope for mailing. Now the gnome, how cute is that little gnome? It's from the Gnomes by Paper Rose, and there is coordinating dies available. The pattern paper is long retired from Stampin' Up. It was actually a gift from a Stampin' Up demonstrator. It was almost a paper share. There was quite a stack of 6 by 6 papers. There was a smattering of all of the patterns that were available at the time. It was a lovely gift that she sent me. I had gone through it recently, flipping through just to remind myself of what was in there, and moved these mushrooms to the top knowing how cute they would work with gnomes. They were kind of on my brain when I decided I wanted to make this card. This card is for my grandson, so I knew I also wanted to keep it sort of masculine. I knew I was going to cut a window in the card and have the gnome peeking through the window from the inside, but I also wanted to make sure I had acetate in that window. So what I did is I used the Tailored Expressions stitched mini slim stacklets for my pattern paper layers. I die cut my panel from the mushroom print pattern paper and adhered it to my card front just on this side. It was not adhered down on these 3 sides. You could lift it up. I used one of the Tasteful Label dies by Stampin' Up to cut the window because it has a stitch line on either side of the cut line, which is a feature I really like. I ran it through my machine, die cutting through both layers. This is the followy piece, and because the only adhesive is just along this edge here, I have 2 other pieces that I can use for embellishing another card, or they can go in recycling. I haven't quite decided what to do with, but you can see how there is the stitch line on both sides of that cut line. Then I was able to just lift back my pattern paper and slide in a piece of acetate that had ATG on the corners. Then used a fine nozzle of glue to adhere the other 3 sides down. So my acetate is sandwiched between the card base front and this paper panel. It's a nice clean look from the back. Now you could dress this up a little more by cutting a bigger circle and making a frame, dressing up the inside, putting a frame, but as I said, this is for my grandson, and those details would just be lost on him. I added the Hey Gnome, which is in the same stamp set, and a few more of the gnome stamps. It needed something else. I didn't want to bring in more craft. I didn't want black, so I used a Stampin' Up punch to punch this label from, cut that label in half, and spread it apart behind this white label. And then I was happy with that. So the front of my card was done. I had my window with the acetate. This was decorated. I stamped my gnome twice, once on white cardstock and once on the patterned paper. I used the coordinating die to cut it out. On the gnome that was stamped on the pattern paper, I fussy cut right on the black stamped line. I just cut out the hat and adhered it to the stamped gnome hat, so I didn't have to color that in, and the colors coordinated really well. I haven't done paper piecing in a while, so that was fun. Another one of the pattern papers that was included, I think there were 3 or 4 of them that all kind of went together, so I used the same Tailored Expressions stitched mini slimline panel to die cut that. This signing block here was cut using the stitched rectangles from Your Next Stamp. And the Happy Spring, I just hand wrote that on one of these retired Stampin' Up word bubbles. So that was popped up with a bit of thin foam tape, and then I did the pop-up. I'm not doing a tutorial in this video because I just did one, so I will link that below on how to do a simple box pop-up. And as I showed in the video, if you're going to just use cardstock and you want to dress it up a bit, you can do that with pattern paper. And generally on a pop-up, you don't end up seeing this side because you've mounted something over top. But my gnome didn't cover up that side, and I knew I didn't want to wrap the whole thing because then I'd have a fold in a fold, and that creates buckling. So I cut it into 2 pieces here, making sure that my fold was free of that pattern paper, and that keeps the mechanism moving smoothly with no buckles in the paper. When I decided where I wanted my placement of the gnome, I realized he was really only going to be adhered by his boots, and I didn't want him drooping. So again, the nice thing about coordinating dies is I die cut a second one from like 110-pound cardstock, just a scrap, and glued it on the back. So you can see, I mean, he is good and sturdy. It would be really hard to fussy cut 2 identical images, but with the dies, that makes everything so much easier. There's a little bit of Wink Stella on his beard because it is for my grandson. I didn't want to make it too sparkly, but at the same time, I like some shimmer and shine. So there's my finished card. I think he's really going to like it. Both he and his little sister celebrate Passover rather than Easter. We celebrate Easter, so I have Easter goodies for them, but I also didn't want to make them an Easter card when they will be celebrating Passover. So this is just a spring card for him, and his little sister will get a different happy spring card. I had so much fun making this card. I think I smiled the whole time I was making it. Those gnomes. Well, I think I'm in a gnome phase, and I'm definitely in a mini Slimline card phase. If you enjoyed my video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more. And that's it for me today.